All right, we're live, baby.
Awesome.
So let's get straight into it. I've written here some questions for you. I don't know if you saw my Facebook post, uh, but I think there's a lot of people that actually need help with not so much their mindset, but um, and not so much about writing to-do lists, but there's a lot of people out there that are just confused with what to do. They
Mhm.
know what to do, they just don't do it. And hence why I want to be talking about accountability. Like writing stuff down the night before. You can go into more detail on that. So, question one: how should someone start their day for success? So, clearly, everyone's different. What advice can you give a content creator or a business coach that wants to go from zero to seven figures like you have?
Right. That's a great question, Alan. So the best answer I can give is don't start your day the day of. Your day needs to start the night before. In fact, your day for the next day needs to start during your shutdown ritual from your previous workday. So what I mean by that is, I've taken this principle from the Jewish calendar. The Jewish reckoning of time in Orthodox Judaism is to reckon from sundown to sundown, right? So that's a day. So instead of at midnight we start a new day, it's if the sun goes down at 6 p.m. tonight, that starts the next day, and that goes until the sun goes down the next day. So in productivity and in business, we have to really operate that way, because if we want a good day tomorrow, if we want to be able to get up refreshed, ready to check off those to-do lists, ready to do and know what we're supposed to do, we have to start the night before. And that starts with our shutdown ritual from our business. So I'll give you an example of what I do. When I shut down, I the first thing I do is I go through my messages. I don't check my email all day long until the end of the day, and my clients know that, and people who work with me know that. That way, I don't have open loops throughout the day that distract me from the most important things. So I check my emails first. I do a little triage there of what I need to do. I put down the important stuff on my planner for the next day. If it's a 30-second answer, I shoot off an email real quick. But that's how I start. Then I do one final check of social media and Facebook Messenger, those types of things. And then I plan my day for the next day. After getting information from those sources, then I start to fill in my planner for the next day. And I only put three big items, only three things that are going to move the needle forward. And those things are all about moving the needle forward. The rest of it goes in secondary tasks, and those secondary tasks are absolutely optional. That means that they are not the most important things for my business. Then I do a 30-minute meditation. Now, you and I, we're probably talking to a lot of people who are working from home. So there's a difference between somebody who works in an office and they commute and they've got 20, 30 minutes, maybe an hour to kind of decompress, listen to some music, unwind, so that when they get home, they're in family mode, they're in home mode, right? They're in ready to relax and get ready for the next day mode. For us as entrepreneurs that work out of our home, it's literally like, for me, it's literally walk out of the studio, walk up the stairs, and boom, I'm there. It So I get a 30-second commute. So I do a 30-minute meditation. That helps me transition. It helps me to close out the day and helps me to transition to the evening. In doing that, I become ready for the next phase, which is rest and relaxation and rejuvenation. And so then I spend my evening very intentionally. I do things, there's still somewhat of a schedule, somewhat of structure, so that it's not just flop on the chair, turn on Netflix, and then zone out until 2 o'clock in the morning. I have a specific amount of time before my evening ritual to go to bed. I start to go to bed and I have a ritual that helps me to calm down, things like turning off electronics, reading, obviously brushing your teeth and the hygiene things, but also things that help my mind to relax so that when my head hits the pillow, I'm telling you, Alan, when I go to sleep, it's literally like if I'm still awake for more than 30 seconds, it's like something's wrong, right?
Really? Well.
So, yeah, I mean, I hit the pillow and I'm ready because I go through an hour-long process that helps me to prepare for that. So that, which most people don't think of. Most people don't do that. They watch TV right up to the moment that they go to bed, or they are busy, 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 or they're shooting off emails or social media or something that's keeping them engaged
Mm.
right up to the moment of sleep. So here's the other thing that most people don't do. Let me ask you, Alan, do you set an alarm to wake up?
No, because I've got an annoying bird outside that wakes me up at 5 o'clock every
All right.
morning,
So
and
you
I
got a
hate
bird.
it.
You're one of the lucky ones. But most people set an alarm. They have a wake up. They know, man, I got to wake up tomorrow at 6 a.m. or I got to wake up at 5 a.m. I got to wake up. What they don't think about is setting a bedtime.
Mm,
They'll watch TV till midnight and know that they got to get up at 6. Well, then they're only getting 6 hours of sleep. So it's so important to get that amount of sleep. If you get 6 hours or less of sleep each day, after 2 days of that, you begin to operate as though you're legally drunk.
mm,
Would you want to operate in your business plastered? I don't think anybody would. Science has proven that.
mm,
So you need seven, a minimum of seven. The human body needs a minimum of seven, anywhere up to a maximum. And yes, there is a maximum because you can sleep too much, a
mm,
maximum of not 9 hours. So you need to figure that out. And then you need to set, for me, I have to be in bed. I have to be asleep, not in just in bed. Because again, there's a difference, right? There's being in bed and then
mm,
actually being asleep. I have to be asleep by 9:30 so that I can get 8 hours and wake up at 5:30. And I wake up feeling refreshed. I also use a sunrise alarm clock so that I don't have harsh noises jolting me awake. But that's where it's important for your productivity to start the night before. And again, part of my
mm,
shutdown routine is planning for the next day. It is thinking about that prior to going to sleep. Part of my evening ritual is to meditate for about 5 minutes and visualize the tasks that I have to do the next day. I do this right before going to bed because your brain's actually more active while you're asleep than it is while you're awake most times. And it's processing information that you've given it. And if you give it that information, it'll take what you have to do. It'll literally work the problem out while you sleep so that when you wake up, you're ready to go. You're ready to
mm.
jump in and get to the problem. So
Yeah.
that's the way. And then the next morning, you wake up. I have a morning routine that sets me up. It includes meditation, a personal devotional, some prayer and
Mm,
scripture study, and time with my family. And then I have a workday startup, which again transitions me so that I'm not still lagging back in the family time. I'm at business time. I don't have that commute to get in to the zone, right? So I
mm,
take about
mm,
30 minutes to get into the zone. And that's reviewing my day. That's again about a five. I do about a 5 minute meditation. I review my day, what I have coming up. I visualize myself accomplishing those goals. I add anything to my planner that needs to, or make adjustments to my planner, and then I get started. And so that's a long answer to your question, but that's what it's a long process. Unfortunately, entrepreneurs think they can just jump into the day, and you can't. You really
mm.
can't. Your brain needs all of these steps so that you can be the most productive, especially if you work from home.
Yeah. Like that. Great detailed answer. Can we go over your shutdown routine? So
Yeah.
obviously this is where you meditate, you unwind, but at what part do you write your to-do list for the next day? So you're talking about the biggest three things that are moving the needle forward.
Right.
Do you do that before you meditate and wind down, or is that something you do after? Because like what I'd love to do is people that are watching this, whether it's on the live or next week, something that they can implement in their life. Um, so yeah, let's go more into detail
Yeah.
onto this shutdown routine.
Absolutely. Great question, Alan. So, the first thing that I do is I check my emails. Like I said, I kind of triage them where if it's something that's going to take a little more effort, I write it down. I notate it into the notes part of my planner. I don't actually plug it in yet as to whether it should be one of my big three or whether it should be a secondary task, but I write it down. If it's something that can be answered with a quick, 20-second message, I just respond immediately. That takes me about 15 minutes. Then I go through social media for about another
Mhm.
15 minutes. I make sure that I've responded to comments. I make sure that because I don't want to be on social media when I'm with my family. So that's my personal way of being like, okay,
Mm.
in fact, you've noticed as we've messaged, I'm sure you've noticed that sometimes you'll send a message and it's like the next day that I answer. It's because I've shut down for that day. I'm not checking my messages. I'm not
Mm.
checking my DMs. So that's part
Also,
of the shutdown.
you're playing hard to get, but
Yeah, it's right. I am. I do play hard to get. You're right. Uh, but so I check. So I spend 15 minutes on email, 15 minutes checking
mm.
my Facebook, Instagram, YouTube comments, anywhere that people might comment or message me,
Yeah.
just to make sure that again. And if it's something that's more in depth, it's going to take more time than 30 seconds. I write it down in my notes. If it's not going to take more, I immediately respond. However, I don't get into conversations during the work. If I respond and then
Mm.
somebody immediately responds, I already gave you my response to that thing. You're just going to have to wait till tomorrow. I also do social media during my workday so that people aren't ignored entirely. It's just this is part of my workday shutdown. After that, so that's about a half hour. Right at the tail end of that, well, so social media is probably about 10 minutes. And then take about 5 minutes because I already know what projects I'm working on. I already know what
Mm.
major steps I need to be taking. So I take about 5 minutes to review those projects, look at what I need to do the next day, look at my notes. Who do I need to respond to? What do I need to do? And then I determine what my big
Mm.
three are. Now, that being said, my big three, sometimes one or two of them doesn't even have anything to do with my business. It might be, okay, looking at my calendar, tomorrow I got to take my daughter to the doctor. So that's one of my big three, right? I got to do
Mm.
that. I'm not taking my daughter to the doctor is not going to be a secondary task,
Mm.
Um, so it's okay to do that. But if there's nothing going on, if you've got the whole day clear to work on your business, then you've got to decide what are the three most important things to do. So the way I break it up is I have a daily big three, a weekly big three, a monthly big three, a quarterly big two or three, which then leads to annual goals. So by reverse engineering my annual goals that way, I can literally connect what I'm doing during the day to my annual goal and breaking it down, reverse engineering to the quarter. What milestone do I
Mm.
need to hit the quarter? What milestone do I need to hit in the month? What milestone do I need to hit in the week? And then what milestone do I need to hit in during the day? And so I can attach those things. And so I write those big three down. Then I write down secondary tasks. These are the things I can do in between. If I'm waiting for videos to finish editing, or I'm waiting for my editor to send something to me, and I can respond to some emails during that time or do something
Mm.
else so that I'm continuing the process of being productive. And then after that, so I have in mind what my three tasks are for the day. I just went through them, just wrote them down, and I do use a physical planner. So I just wrote them down. Now I go and I have a recliner in my office, and I sit in my recliner. I turn off the lights, I kick it back, and I meditate for a half hour. I
Yeah.
put on noise canceling headphones, completely immerse myself in some music that helps me focus on meditating. And I think about, again, I close out the day, kind of give myself a little celebration of what I've done. I think about what I'm going to do tomorrow. And then I think about the phase that I'm moving into, which is husband and dad, so that I can leave all work behind. I leave my phone
Mm.
downstairs. I leave my work phone downstairs. I shut my computer off. Everything can just be focused on where I want to be present, to be there with my family. One of the things that I got asked was, you're so busy as an entrepreneur. You're going out, you're speaking, you're going on podcasts, you're building your business, you're coaching, you're doing all of these things. How is it that you can still have a close family? And I said, because when I'm with them, I'm with them.
Mm.
And so that's part of my shutdown ritual, end of day ritual, is to make sure that when I'm with them, I am with them. I'm not still thinking about work. I'm not still talk. I don't talk about it at dinner. After work, I don't think about work. I don't read. I even read different books. So during the day, if I take a break, I read a business book because I love learning
Mm.
and growing that. In the evening, I read an entirely different type of book, whether it's fiction or maybe it's not fiction, but it's just not in the vein of business. Maybe it's a spiritual book, it's a meditation book, something along those lines.
Mm.
But I take those, so I separate my life. And that way, when I'm with my family, when I'm there, I'm present. When I'm there instead of still thinking about it. I don't. So my rules are don't talk about work, don't think about work, don't read about work, and don't do work. And that goes for my weekends as well. So that's my day. That's my and I do have to point one thing out. One of the reasons I do that is because I literally, when I plan my week, I block off that time. When I'm done with work, that time gets
Mm.
blocked off, and so does the weekends. And those are appointments. Those appointments are just as important and sacred to me as this appointment that I made to be with you today. So when people say, "Hey, can you meet at this time?" If it's during the weekend, if it's during my off time, I just politely tell them, "I'm sorry, I'm previously engaged at that time. I
Mm.
already have an appointment." And it's not lying. The appointment is with my wife, it's with my children, it's with it's with myself, if it's self-care, if
Yeah.
it's just spending time with myself. And so I need I need to emphasize that when you're planning your week, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to have a set shutdown time for work, and then that's got to be it. There's no violating that.
Mm. Yeah. Nice. You're talking about having a physical diary, and that was one of my other questions. So productivity, there's a lot of planners out there, online planners, Notion, Airtable, ClickUp, Monday. Um, do you recommend people use an online plan? So that could be more beneficial for the planning, like your big three for that day, for that week, for that quarter. But in
Mhm.
terms of day to day stuff, why would you recommend a physical diary or a planner versus an online?
Well, so first, the reason why I would recommend a physical planner or diary is because I sell the purpose driven planner. It's a physical planner. It's one I designed, I use, and I sell it. Our company sells it. So obviously, I'm going to recommend that. But I do also use Google Calendar. So I use a
Mm.
hybrid system. The reason why I like the physical planner, because even in the planner, there's a space there to write not just your to do list, but your schedule in the planner that I've designed. And if you use a planner, I recommend that you not only have a to-do list, but also an agenda or a schedule where you can write things out. And the reason why is because science has proven that there's a connection between the brain and the hand. And when
Mm.
we
Mm.
actually write things out, even more so than typing things or clicking them into our phone, when we handwrite things out, they sink into our brain more, which gives our brain, if we write down the three things, like I said, if we write those three things down that we need to do the next day, our brain immediately from that moment starts working on it subconsciously, working on
Mm.
how is the most effective way, the most efficient way to do that. I'll tell you a secret. Our brains hate burning calories, right?
Mm.
Our brains were designed from an evolutionary standpoint because let's think about our ancestors. They never knew, it wasn't like today. They never knew when their next meal was going to come, right?
Mm.
So in between the gathering or the hunting, they had to conserve calories. That was what the brain evolved to do, was to conserve calories, meaning, hey, thug the caveman, don't climb over the rock. That burns too many calories. Just walk around it. You're walking on
Mm.
flat. You don't have to climb and you'll get around it and you'll be fine, right? So when we give it a task, we say, okay, tomorrow I need to record a podcast or I need to edit videos or I need to do whatever, right? And we've written it down. The hand connects it to the brain. The subconscious starts thinking, okay, how can I get this task done in as few hours as possible, burning as
Mm.
few calories as possible, and still have it done effectively? And so our brain is a magnificent efficiency machine if we'll let it be. But we've got to prime the pump.
Mm.
We've got to give it that, and writing it connects that and gives that to your brain. Even if you don't do what I do, where right before sleep you think about those tasks, that's the only time that I go back to business after stopping work is right before bed. I think about my tasks for the next day, meditate on them for a minute. Even
Mm.
if you don't, the fact that you've written it down, your subconscious is already connected at, it's taken it in. But absolutely, I use Asana. I've used Slack. I've used ClickUp. I use Google Calendar and Asana primarily right now as a hybrid system
Mm.
because I do have a team. And so it's easy for my team to look in Asana and see what they need to do, what I've put in there for me to look and see what they've accomplished. But we transfer what's in Asana, we transfer what's on our Google calendars back into our physical planner because it does solidify that in the brain, and it does keep us more connected to our goals versus just using a digital and relying on just the alarm going off or just
Mm.
a reminder on our phone.
Yeah, nice. Back to the Netflix thing. So yes, our brains um, hate burning calories because it's for survival. Like we need energy. If we can save energy, our brains will try and save as much energy because we need that for ourselves.
Hmm.
Hence, to survive. Do you think that's why? So people at the end of the day, they switch off, but then they watch Netflix for 2 3 hours, or they watch stupid TV for 2 3 hours. They're saving energy, but at the same time, nothing's getting done, so they're not being productive. So, do you think meditating for 30 minutes? So, like, let's just say someone finishes their work and they finish at 6 o'clock. Yeah, most
Hmm.
people will, maybe go for a walk outside, or they cook dinner, they watch Netflix until 9:30, 10 o'clock. So they waste 3 4 hours, but for them, that's saving energy. But then that doesn't actually make sense because they're saving energy, but then they're going to bed. Yeah.
So here's the thing. Here's the fun thing about that. Uh, People think that they're conserving energy and maybe physically, but they are actually stressing their brain out more when they watch 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or
Mm.
6 or 12 hours of when they binge watch TV. And here's why. Again, everything that I do and everything that I teach is based in science. And what they found is for you to focus on a show, even on your social media. So you're sitting there, maybe you're not watching TV, but you're scrolling through your social
Mm.
media. What happens is you're stressing your executive function. You're scrolling on your social media and you have to make millions of micro decisions like that. Do I like Josh's post? Do I comment on his post? No, I don't. Should I click this article? Should
Mm.
I read? Then within the
Yeah. Yeah.
article, there's all these other links. Whether you know it or not, your brain is making these decisions. You're getting
Mm.
what's called decision fatigue. So instead of resting your brain by doing that, you're stressing it. Same with watching TV. Your brain, for you to really focus, deep focus, it takes about 25 minutes, which is why multitasking is such a horrible thing because there's really no such thing. It doesn't really make you more productive and it doesn't make you more effective at doing good work because it takes you about 25 minutes to really get into the groove of what you're doing. So that being said, you watch a TV show, the average sitcom is about 20 minutes. So just as your brain is really starting to get into it, it switches to a whole nother storyline. Or say you watch something for 40 minutes. Great. Now your brain's gotten into it. It's into it for about 20 minutes. Then you got to switch to another story or, the next episode, which might be still the storyline, but it's not a great, it's still switching, right? It's still
Mm.
bringing your brain, making your brain have to jump, whether it's for a week or whether they do a flashback or whatever, you've got to catch up. So then it takes 25 minutes. Well, all this time, your executive function is just going absolutely nuts. That is why when people binge watch, when all they do on the weekend is just sit there and watch TV, they dread Mondays. That's why they're
Mm.
tired on Mondays. That's why people, even if they go to bed at a reasonable time, if all they do is watch TV, that's why they're more tired in the morning. Their brain is tired, which then communicates to the
Mm.
body, I'm tired. So your body responds thinking, oh, I'm tired, right? Your brain dictates what your body does. So if your brain's tired, your body will be tired. That's
Yeah.
why it's so important to do something different. If you've been sitting in front of a screen all day, don't sit in front of a screen. At least
Mm.
not all night. My family, we do like to watch like uh we'll stream an episode of something, but it's like an episode, right? The rest of the time we're getting dinner ready, we're engaging with each other,
Mm.
we're talking about how our days went, and preparing for the next day and making sure homework's done, and going for walks when the weather is good, and when the weather's bad, watching the snow. That's right now it's snowing, watching
Oh
the
well.
snowfall,
Mm.
things like that. So that way we're not stressing our executive function, because we've already stressed it
Mm.
all day long doing work, doing knowledge work especially, and we don't want it. We want to give that part of our brain a rest. A good rule of thumb is, if you work with your brain, break with your body. Do things with your body, whether it's going for a walk, even just looking out the window, or
Mm.
meditating, or doing some yoga, or sitting around. Maybe you're sitting but you're talking. Okay, that's doing stuff with your body instead of doing stuff with your, if you want to give your brain a break. Watching, scrolling through social media, watching TV, they call it mindlessly, but it's not mindless. Your brain pays attention to everything.
Mm.
And when you're more focused on that kinds of stuff, you're stressing it. And science has proven this over and over again, and it's becoming more and more clear that that is why people are tired. And that's why your day starts with what you do the evening before and how you use that time. And again, I'm not saying, listen, I love Star Trek. Look, right behind me, I've got the Starship Enterprise up on my wall, right? I love a good Star Trek marathon. When I'm sick, I'll do nothing but watch TV,
Mm.
because, I can't get out of bed. I can't focus on reading a book. And I'm not really watching. It's more just the noises on, right? So I'm
Mm.
not saying that there aren't times when that's appropriate. I'm not saying that you can't watch a TV show, or even two. But getting sucked into the binge watching, it gives you false dopamine hits. It stresses your executive function, and it does
Mm.
not prepare you to have a good night's rest so that you can have a good day the next day.
Yeah. Got it. That was good. What? So let's go back to the TV thing. So again, 99.9% of people watch TV in the afternoon. Yeah. There's like
Mhm.
very rarely someone's going to sell their TV, or not watch it completely. So I'm guessing that people are addicted to that stimulus of, uh, and more importantly, habits. Yeah. So
Right.
I imagine, when you were talking before about eating dinner or even looking out the window, I imagine my girlfriend and I sitting there at the table. Usually we watch TV while we eat dinner, but then it's like, well, if you really want to condition your brain, you turn the TV off. But then it's boring not watching TV. But that's a habit because we're so used to stimulating our brain, getting that dopamine,
Yeah.
that once you take that away, so how can we stop? Um, well, let's talk about stimulus addiction. So that's basically dopamine addiction, yeah.
Mhm.
But how can we? So if a business coach or a content creator, small business owner, they want to be more productive in their business, how can they go from watching TV at night to not watching TV? Like, what do they need to do to slowly retrain their brain?
Right. So that's a great question. I get that all the time. What people think is that they need to just stop, and that doesn't
Mm.
work. Um, so, a lot of my principles I also relate back to biblical ideas. And in the book of Isaiah in the Bible, they're talking about the peace that'll happen during, the second coming of Jesus, and that they will beat their swords into plowshares. So it's not just enough that they lay down their swords. They had to take that weapon of war and transform it
Mm.
into something useful. They had to fill it, that void, right? They had to fill, they're used to holding something in their hand. They had to fill it with something. So, we went through this with our kids. I mean, we were the average American family. We watched TV while
Mm.
we ate. We watched TV right before bed. We had TV in our bedroom. The kids had iPads and screen, right? And
Mm.
as I discovered this and started doing my research and learning this, and we said, okay, as a family, we need to change this, because it is, what you're doing is you're giving yourself false rewards, those dopamine hits. Rather
Mm.
than getting a dopamine hit for legitimately doing something awesome, you're getting a dopamine hit because somebody clicked like on your post. You're getting a dopamine hit because something was funny on TV, or you get addicted because, again, they know the formula, right? By the way, I know I'm sitting here saying don't watch TV, but if you have Netflix, go and watch the show The Social Dilemma, where it
Mm.
talks
I've
about
watched
the
that. Yeah.
science, where people actually, you know they're programming these things to make you addicted just as
Mm.
badly as drugs or alcohol or anything else. So what we found was, we had to say, okay, it's not enough to just say, okay, no TV. We had to change it up. We had to find things. So dinner became, yeah, no TV during dinner. So we're all going to, instead of eating, sitting in the living room, or having a TV in there, we made sure dinner was always at the dining table. We made sure that we as parents had questions to engage our kids, so that there was conversation.
Mm.
So it wasn't just silent, head down, scraping the plate sounds,
Yeah.
so that we could engage with them. We also started to include them in things like, we had to prepare dinner, might as well include the kids as part of that. We started to actually expand some of their chores, which you would think, oh man, you're expanding chores, but they actually loved it, in the sense of giving them a little more responsibility. Say, hey, we trust you more. So
Mm.
yeah, you can take the dishes, especially the little ones, right? They love that. Oh, I can help mommy, I can help daddy.
Mm.
So we engaged them with just what we were doing naturally. But also, once dinner's over, again, we filled it with different things like story time. We bought a ton of books, and we read the books to them. We filled it with things like puzzles. We bought a bunch of
Mm.
puzzles. We bought a bunch of card games and board games, and we filled it with those things. Like I said, we still watch an episode or two, probably every night, every other night. We do that. We haven't eliminated it, but what we've done is we've put it in its place for
Mm.
something to be temporary entertainment at an appropriate time, rather than a 24/7 companion.
Yeah.
And by doing that and replacing the time, not just saying no screens, but saying, what can
Mm.
we do to replace the screens that are still entertaining, that are still fun, that will engage the children and engage us with them? Again, I always tell people, stop existing, start living. Existing is being a zombie watching TV, even if your family's all there. How many times, anybody watching this, I'd love for them to leave in the comments, how many times you've had the TV on, Billy's had his phone, Susie's got her phone, mom's got the iPad, dad's got his phone, all
Mm.
watching different things, and you've still got the almighty altar of your TV on. Nobody's paying attention, right? So nobody's engaging. You're just a zombie. You're not really living.
Mm.
We've found that we're living and experiencing things and creating, and our kids are hilarious. I had no idea my children were so funny until I started engaging with them. And I'm like, where did you learn that? How come you're saying that? Where did that saying come from? I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are hilarious. I would never know that if I were still like, here's your iPad, leave dad alone. And
Yeah.
so that's the idea, is it's not so much of just saying, well, don't do it. Let's just stare out a window. I mean, again, if
Mm.
we're looking out the window, it's because there's something interesting. Hey, it's snowing. Let's watch it snow. Or look, there's something going on out in the neighborhood, or we go outside, we sit on the porch, we let the kids play. We got a whole playground in our backyard. We bought a
Mm.
playground, put it up in our backyard so our kids have something to do. We have bikes. We have a lot of things that, instead of spending money on a Lambo, I've spent a ton of money on children's activities, but so that way they've got something to replace that screen.
Yeah. What's your advice on someone who is single. Um, yeah, so I think having kids is easier because like
Right.
you're the father. You can say how was your day at school. Like you've got a few things to talk about, but a lot of business coaches and content creators are either single or they have partners. But specifically for someone who's single, um, what do you recommend they do? Do they watch TV? Do they sit at eat dinner and listen
So
to some motivation stuff?
that is a great question, Alan. My business partner in the Purpose Driven Co. He's actually single, no wife, no kids,
Mm,
um, and work. And I mean, let's face it, as entrepreneurs, we love what we do. Our businesses
mm,
oftentimes are our babies,
yeah.
and we could spend all day working on it.
Mm,
It'd be counterproductive. And again, I have the science to back that up, but we could without any regrets because we love it.
mm,
But this is where, as a single person, you've got to make it a point. I'm going to stop working at this time. And again, I am going to do things after work, whether that is making plans, and that's part of being intentional. You have to make plans,
mm,
right? I'm going to call on Sunday this friend and this friend and this friend. I'm going to make plans for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights, or for this next weekend. I'm going to make plans. So making plans to go out to be with your friends, making plans even if it is going to the movies, but you're
mm,
out and about and you're socializing, right? um, so being intentional about your plans. Let's say you don't have that. You're just sitting there, you're alone, you're in your apartment, your house, and you don't have friends, or you haven't planned anything for that night, or plans fell through. That's fine. That's why you want to find things that interest you. That's where the hobbies come in. I have one client that he doesn't shoot, but he loves to collect guns. So his thing, when he's alone, he's single, he can spend all kinds of money on this hobby.
mm,
He loves to clean these guns that are literally just sitting on display.
mm,
So he does that. He cleans his guns. What is your hobby? Is your hobby
mm,
puzzles? Is your hobby, and this is where living a well-rounded life. If you don't have a hobby, if you can't readily identify something you enjoy doing outside of work, then you need to take a step back. You need to become the observer for a moment
mm,
and think back in your life. What were some things I used to enjoy? Some people love running. You know, I I have one client, she trains for marathons. Like that's her, she's
mm,
single. She gets done with work, she goes out and trains. No matter what the weather is, she's going to go run for 2 hours. Hey, that's awesome. That's great. Not my cup of tea, but that's
yeah.
what she does. So that's where the hobby part becomes so important. As a parent, we don't really get time for because the kids are basically our lives, especially when you're
Mm,
like myself and you've got 6 children and they're from 17 down to 3 years old. But when you're single, that's why it's so important to develop those hobbies. It's also important because if you do get married and you do have children, and when those children grow up and they get out of the house, or they become more independent, you have more time to yourself, you need something to go back to so that you don't fall into the trap of, well, they're all teenagers, they're all out of the house, I'm just going to watch TV.
mm,
So I have hobbies that I love. I may not engage in them as much as I want to or as regularly, but they're there so that when I'm at a point that kids are either taking care of themselves, or they're out, or
mm,
they've moved out of the house, that I've got something to fill that time with, and I don't just default to scrolling or
yeah.
TV.
Yeah. Nice. I also researched, this was years ago, maybe 5 years ago, that people actually watch TV, so movies, sports. So subconsciously, people actually get addicted to watching movies and sport
Mhm.
because they put themselves in the character, so then they can actually save energy. They don't have to try. So most people want to be a famous movie, actor, or a famous singer, or a famous footballer or whatever. But it's easier for them to watch it on TV than to
Mhm.
actually try in real life, go through the pain. um, yeah, I thought that was very interesting how people get addicted to watching sport because they can see that they put themselves into that sport. Like Michael Jordan or LeBron James or whatever it is. It's like people put themselves into that character, and subconsciously that is them playing. Hence why they're so in love with these people instead of
Right.
actually doing it. Like if you love basketball so much, you would train to be a famous, but people don't because it takes
Right.
energy. Maybe they're not tall enough, so it's easy for them to sit on the couch, not be lazy, but to
Well,
save energy.
and it comes back also to what we just talked about. It does
Mm,
give you dopamine hits. You do, so again, I just like moderation in the business, you have to be have moderation in your hobby. If your hobby is watching football, that's great, but don't let it take over your life. Don't
mm,
become addicted to watching your favorite athletes score the touchdown. Go out and score a touchdown, even if it is just a bunch with a bunch of other fat guys that dads or whatever running around in at the park,
yeah.
But that's the problem is you're absolutely right. People live vicariously through these other people. They get their dopamine highs from their wins. They get their
Mm,
anger from their
mm,
losses as if they were the person because they have lost that balance.
yeah.
They've, like I said, it's not bad to watch TV. You've got to have balance, though. It's not bad to work on a business, but you've got to have
Mm,
balance. And it's just like that with a hobby. Whether your hobby is even your hobby, if it's not watching sports or it's not watching movies, but it's something physical, even that can get out of hand where you're spending too much time on that aspect and you're not giving yourself enough balance to have a social life or enough balance to get the proper rest or the proper nutrition.
mm,
So you're absolutely right, and it comes back to that. When your favorite athlete scores, you get a dopamine hit, and so
mm,
you can easily become addicted to living vicariously through that person. When your favorite actor is on the screen and he gets the girl or she gets the guy or Indiana Jones gets the treasure or whatever,
mm,
you get
mm.
a dopamine hit. Hollywood knows this. That's why they have formulas to create movies.
Yeah.
And so the danger there is that you become so addicted to movies that that's where your whole life is spent, and
Mm,
that
mm.
you're again trying to live vicariously through these things versus actually going out and doing something.
And yeah, and as you said, you're not actually living. You're almost living a fake life, uh,
Yeah.
and you know that, but it's almost like you tell yourself, yeah, like you lie to yourself.
Yeah.
All right, so let's finish off with some accountability stuff. So, how can someone? So, like let's just say the people that are watching this, they do the shutdown routine. They meditate. They watch less TV at night time. They do everything that you've suggested. Because obviously that's going to help them with being more productive the next day and getting more stuff done.
Mhm.
How can someone be more accountable? A lot of people work from home by themselves. They don't have a boss saying, if you don't do this by tomorrow, you're fired. So deadlines. Yeah. So how can coaches, content creators set deadlines and stay accountable when they are by themselves?
Right. That's a great question. And you're absolutely right, is you don't have somebody looking over your shoulder. You don't have somebody telling you when something's due unless you're working on a project for someone else. Then they say, well, we need this by this time. And okay, great. So you have that deadline. So what I've found for staying accountable, that's the other reason why I love a physical planner. Because when I look down at it, and I look at it throughout the day, it's so easy to just if you get a little notification on your phone, just a little calendar or even
Mm,
Asana or Slack, it's so easy to just clear the notification. But something that's written in pen and something that's there in ink, you can't just delete that. And what happens is this is where the cognitive dissonance starts working in your brain. I said I was going to record 20 videos by the end of the day. I didn't do it. I spent the whole day scrolling on Facebook because you look at it, you go, no, I can't check
yeah,
that
yeah,
off.
yeah.
And then you know exactly why you can't, right?
Mm,
So having that, it's almost like a little accountability buddy kind of screaming back at you all day, like, hey, you've got this to do, because our brains don't like that. Our brains don't
Mm,
like that when we can't check something off. Our brains love checking boxes. Okay. So clearing an alarm, no big deal for our brain. But checking a box, if we don't check it, our brain goes, what what did you do, dude? Why didn't you do that? What, right? So you actually, your brain will keep you accountable using a physical planner. If you have to write
mm,
that task down a second day because you didn't do it today or because you screwed around and didn't finish it, your brain's not going to be happy, right? It wants that checkbox. That means the next day it's going to be even more likely to keep that loop open saying, hey, Josh, get to that task, Josh, get to that task, Josh, do it. And you're just going to, it's almost like you do have a little boss and you're going to be like, all right, I'm
mm,
doing it. Right. So that's, it's interesting the science of the way the brain works. People say, well, you could just check the box or you could just ignore it
mm,
anyways. Yeah. But your brain knows, again, your subconscious, maybe your consciousness, you can ignore that, but your subconscious gets bugged and it'll keep bugging you and keep surfacing until you get that done. And so what you start to learn, you become trained to say, I don't like that nagging feeling. I don't like that open loop feeling. I don't like the feeling like there's still something I should be doing. So you get to it and you learn to get to it. That if it is written down in ink, that it gets done and you create the habit. But here's the other cool thing. Every time you do check a box, your brain rewards you. It wants that
mm.
behavior. It gives you dopamine. So that's what I'm talking about. You can get false dopamine hits from these things from your phones where you when you scroll and you get a little like and you get a little comment, that gives you a false dopamine. You haven't earned that, right? You haven't accomplished
Mm.
anything other than maybe shared a witty meme or a pithy statement. You
Yeah.
haven't earned that. It's a false dopamine. But when you check that box, you get a genuine dopamine hit and your body loves it, your brain loves it, and you want to do it again. It's the other reason why I only recommend three big things. Because if you approach the day with a list of 20 things, even if you did all 15 of them, Alan, if you did all 15, if you did 15 out of 20, what is your brain going to focus on?
Mm,
It's going to focus on the five things you didn't do, right? You're going to be bugged all night. Even if you got 15 out of 20, you should be celebrating. You got, you got three-quarters of the way done, but your brain's
mm,
going to focus on the five. That's why I only do three, because at the end of the day, you get a dopamine hit. I won. I did those three things. I won. I want to do three more things tomorrow. I want to do three more things the day after. You keep wanting to do it. But if you don't, if you screw around and you miss one of those three things, your brain's going to focus on that. And so it's going to bring you back around. The problem is people start every day with 20 and only get 10
mm.
or 15 done. So every day they're feeling like losers instead of feeling like, okay, I missed today, tomorrow will be better. And
Yeah.
that's why there's that
Nice.
magic number of three, because if you miss one today, it's easy to get back on track with just three than to try to get back on track with another 20. Because then you start tomorrow with 20 and you got the five you didn't do today. So you got 25 and it just builds. See?
So let's go deeper into that. So let's define what big is. So I'll give you an example. Let's just say I write down three things, and the big three things that I want to accomplish today is I want to film 10 videos, I want to do 3 podcasts, and I want to uh, send an email to this multi-billion-dollar person. Yeah, and today happens, but I've only got time to do one thing because things go wrong. Like normal people, you put the camera on and you stuff up, you stutter. I stutter a lot because my brain is literally like this. I my brain works where you can literally think of 100 things at once. So, like while we're talking about productivity and TVs, my brain at the same time is also thinking about the next question and then the next question. So when I say one word, another word pops up, and I'm like, oh. So what happens is when, let's just say, most people write down three things that they want to accomplish for that day, but they only accomplish one thing, then where does stress come into the brain where you're so disappointed because you know that you want to, like, that for you to reach that seven-figure mark, or, that eight-figure mark, you have to uh, go through these steps every single day to reach your quarter goal, your half-year goal. So not doing these three big things, um, at what point does your brain come up with stress? And then when you're stressed, the next day, instead of starting with three fresh things, you're now trying to do what you did yesterday. So you're catching up, but as a result, you're stressed. And then as you're stressed, you want dopamine. So then you distract yourself, you start to procrastinate, and then you go. So yeah, I just want to get you
Right.
thinking.
Absolutely. That's a great question. So the idea is your your big three should be the next smallest task you can do towards your weekly big three. So this is where a lot of people fail in productivity. They mistake tasks for projects. So they'll say one of their big three is to complete the landing page on their sales funnel. When really what and so then they think, okay, I can do that in an hour. And instead they spend all day on it. And so they also don't get
Mm-hmm.
copywriting done, and they don't get the email sequence done, right? When really, instead of that's a project, doing your landing page for your funnel, that's a project, right? Or your sales page. Let's say, because landing pages are usually lots more simple. So let's say your entire sales page that you want it completed, and that's one of your daily big three. Well, that's a project. So let's break that down into smaller components. Because if you actually break it down into smaller components, here's the thing I want people to understand: slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. So it may seem like you're going slow if instead of saying do a sales page as one of your big three, but instead you say, today I'm just going to write the copy. Tomorrow, or maybe your big three are components of the sales page. I'm going to write the copy. I'm going to find the graphics, and uh, I'm going to create the Calendly link, or I'm going to create the sales link or something, right? So smaller components of the sales page. Instead of saying I'm going to do my sales page, I'm going to do this project, and I'm going to do this project, because that's what you're saying. When if it's taking you more than the day for that task, you're probably creating projects, not
Mm,
tasks.
nice.
Tasks should be like one or two steps. Writing copy is one thing. It's you're going to sit down, you're going to type up copy. It's not a multi-step thing. Finding graphics, or editing the main graphic. Again, just the main
Yeah.
graphic, not even other graphics, right? Editing the main graphic. That's one step. And if you can do that consistently, you're going slow, but you're going smooth, which is actually going to go faster, because when you go slow and smooth, you get things done. When you try to go too fast, when you try to do a project, exactly what you said happens. All of a sudden, things start piling up. You start getting down
Mm,
on yourself. You start feeling like a failure. You go, why can't I even accomplish three things? Josh said just do three things, and I can't even do that. I'm a horrible mess. I'm just going to grab Facebook, and I'm going to disappear into Facebook, and I'm going to
yeah.
post on Instagram to make
Clean my
people think I'm
guns.
rich and famous, even though I'm not. All of that, you just devolve
Yeah.
into a big hot mess. So that's why if you're struggling with that, take a step back. Again, become the observer, take a step back and ask yourself, am I scheduling projects for the day, or am I scheduling tasks? If there's multi steps to do this task, it's a project. So now
Mhm.
break that down into the smaller tasks and make those your big three for this day, and this day. And by the end of the week,
Yep.
you'll have that
Mm,
project done. And then what you do is you recognize that, well, my sales page really should have been one of my weekly big three. That should have been one of my weekly tasks or projects,
yep. Yep.
because it's going to take multiple days and multiple tasks. So if you do that and you move that up to your weekly, all of a sudden now you're feeling good, you're feeling on track, you're moving, you're getting your dopamine, you continue doing that.
Mm, yep.
So that's why I say people mistake projects for tasks, and if it's taken you too much, or
Mm.
you got to do more than one or two steps, you're into a project.
So let's break this down. Like I love breaking things down. So when I help my clients, I've come up with a thing called the breakdown method, where
Mhm.
you break down things. So let's just say you're coming up with copywriting and you help LinkedIn coaches get clients. You list 10 things. So they could use Facebook groups, they could use Facebook profile posts, YouTube, and then what you want to do is you write 10 things down, but then you break those 10 things down 10 times. So, but then you do it again. So you start with one thing, but you come up with 100 different things that you can do. So similar thing to what you're saying here. Um, let's just say every Sunday. So I actually love what you said about the projects versus tasks. Never thought about it like that. I have, but not in that way, which is really good. So let's just say, and I want to break this down further, so people watching this are very very clear on the direction that they need. So let's just say someone's project is to create a sales funnel. That could take one day, it could take 5 days. We don't know. So that's one project. So I'm just going to write down sales funnel. The second project could be that they want to film 20 videos for social media to try go viral. Yeah. So I'm just going to write down viral. The third project could be uh, reaching out to people, you know, whatever it may be. So reaching out and getting clients. So that's your three big projects for the week. Yeah. So would you recommend writing down like one task per project per day, or would you recommend um, putting 2 or 3 days per project and trying to finish one project at a time? So, for an example, the the first project. So let's just say on it's Sunday today. For an example, it's Sunday, and I write down three projects, and my big projects are sales funnel, try go viral, and the third project is contact as many companies as possible. Yeah. Do I start with the sales funnel and then finish that and then move on to the videos? So step by step, or would you do one task each every day?
So that's a great question. And as far as the basics of that question of, I've got three projects, should I work all on them all on one day, and or should I
Mm,
spread them out? And it's really a personal preference. I do tell my clients this because I get that question from them: is remember, your brain does not like task switching. So if you can
mm,
spend a whole day working on your sales funnel versus like, I'm going to spend an hour and a half on the sales funnel, an hour and a half on the podcast, an hour and a half on
mm,
my, contacting clients. If you can spend a whole day, you avoid that task switching and the executive fatigue that comes along with it. Your executive
mm,
function fatigue. So I do like what I call mega batching, where I'll say, okay, these 2 days are sales funnel days. These 2 days are podcast days, and this day is left for the final project, the contacting clients or prospective clients, whatever it might be. So that way you're spending that time doing it and not switching back and forth and switching back and forth. Now, that being said, here's the really cool thing about people's brains is they do work differently. Some people can't
mm,
focus for 6 hours on one project. They have to switch. They
mm,
get about an hour and a half into it, and then they're just sitting there looking at a screen like, what the crap am I doing?
mm,
So again, take into account your personal style and go, well, so we have what's called ultradian rhythms. I think I've mentioned them before,
mm,
where they're about 90-minute cycles. Some people can take those 90-minute cycles and then take a break and come back and keep working on the same project. Other people need to switch. So at that 90-minute mark, take your 20-minute break. If you work with your brain, break with your body. Go for a walk, go do a chore, wash some dishes, go pet your dog, or even just go lay down for a minute and just let your body just completely relax where you're breaking with your body. Come back after that. If you don't want to or can't focus on that next task, then you're probably, or that same task, you're probably somebody who needs to switch to something else. Your body's refreshed, your brain's refreshed, and it's telling you, I'm ready for a different project. So then do that. That's the great thing about my
Mm.
productivity system is it's not this rigid, you have to, you have to, you have to. It's based on principles and it's based on science that you can take as an individual and you can say, I work better. I can't do this for 6 hours. There's no way I could focus on this for 6 hours, but I can do it for an hour and a half. And then I can do this for an hour and a half. And then I can do this for an hour and a half.
Mm.
So you've got to take that into account, your own personal way. And you've got to be cognizant. That's where you have to pay attention as the person,
Mm.
um, to what my personal style is. I am a mega batching person. I'm going to work on recording all day long on these 2 days. I'm that type of a guy. My partner is very much, I'm going to work on this project for a little bit today, and then this one, and then this one. And then I'm going to do that the next day and the next day until they're done.
Mm.
So it's just, and both of us get everything done we need to by the end of the week. So that's not the one is right or one is wrong. It is that
Mm.
the way our brain wants to work. Again, the idea of my productivity is don't fight it. Get into flow state. Don't fight what your brain wants. Work with your brain. It's like YouTube. Don't fight the algorithm. Work with the algorithm, right?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
you'll get the results you want. So it's the same concept with your brain. And so to answer your question, there's both ways you can do it, um, and it really depends on the way your brain operates.
Love it. Love it. Let's finish off with your diary. So, can you send me a link? So, how can someone buy your productivity diary or your journal?
Right now, so we just did some updates to it because we found some better ways of doing things. Again, I believe in staying on the cutting edge of science and practical methods. So we have taken our sales page down, but I will send you the sales page, the link,
Mhm.
but you can also find it at our website, the purposedrivenco.com. You can find a link to it there as well. Or you can just send me a message on Instagram. My personal Instagram is at J Allen Hull. That's
Mhm.
JALLENHULL. Or you can message me on Facebook. Again, I go by J Allen Hull on Facebook, and you can find me. That's my handle. There is at
Mm.
J Allen Hull.
I'll
So
add in all the links as well on YouTube
yeah,
so people can
so
reach
so
out.
you, so you can reach out to me personally, and I will get you the information on how you can purchase that. So we have two versions. We have a PDF version that you can purchase for 1995, and that's you just print it off. You can put it in a 3-ring binder. It's sized to be on standard copy paper. And then we also have for 49.95 we have a leather 6-ring binder style where it's printed on thicker paper stock, and it's bound. And then what the nice thing about that is then you can just order the refills. um, it's an A5 size, so it's the smaller size, more convenient size, and you can order the refills for that at a reduced cost, so that every quarter you can refill. So there's both options. We have multiple colors on the leather 6-ring binder, and it just allows you that flexibility to where again it's got pockets for your change and
Mm.
pens and all of the great stuff that's in there. But we really this has been designed from my specific experience. The other thing that we do is we give you a link to watch the training videos on how to use each section of the planner. They're 2 to 3 minute long videos so that you have instructions on how to use that planner to its most
Mm.
effectiveness for you. So again, that's the Purpose Driven Planner. You can go to the purposedrivenco.com. You can also contact me directly over social media. And once we re release it, which we're going to do in March, so the perfect timing. We're going to be doing that right here in March. Now with the new updates, you'll get the newest version. There's no longer any of the old version available. So you'll get the newest version with the latest updates, the latest training, and be able to start implementing the things we've talked about today in your daily and weekly lives.
Hmm. That sounds brilliant. And how I see this as well, I teach my clients it's how there's something called the justify method, which I totally made up. But basically, if you sell something for $50, is that $50 going to help someone make $500? Or is that $50 planner going to help them get at least one client in the next 12 months? If that's the case, then it's worth spending $50 on a planner, because at the end of the 12 months, you're going to be more productive. You're going to be, like you're going to be more structured. You're going to make more
Mhm.
money. So it's clear to me that if anyone buys this planner, that they're going to make, more money, or they're going to get at least one client more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The clients that we have, that's the first thing we start them on is that work directly with me or in our group coaching. We start them with the planner, and we have yet to see anybody not make progress with this system. It gives direction, it gives purpose, it gives clarity, and that's what you need as an entrepreneur. It
Mm,
keeps people from wandering off onto shiny syndrome paths, and that's what you need as an entrepreneur. And it gives you the step by step, literally helps you take your annual goal, break it down into the simplest steps. And when all you're focused on is the next right step, which is what this planner helps you focus on, all of a sudden you look back over the year and you go, holy crap, I got more done this year than I thought I would. Oftentimes we have clients have to either add annual goals or rewrite annual goals because they by
mm,
end of summer, beginning of fall, they've already achieved them or they've blown past them. And we say, well, then create a stretch goal.
mm,
So absolutely. This is the planner. This is the system I created that took me from being disabled, which we've talked about in another video, to where I'm at today. It's a system I use. It's a system my wife, my kids, they use it for school. They're all getting straight A's. This is a system for anybody who is looking to take their life to the next level. Whatever that idea of the next level is, we're not going to teach you how to build a business. That's not what I do. I'm going to teach you how to
mm,
take what you're doing currently and do it better and faster so that you can do less while making more, so that you can succeed in business while winning at life. And that's really our
mm.
motto.
Brilliant. And I hope everyone who's watching this, the recorded version, is getting a lot of value from this. Did you want to meet up again maybe next week? We can talk about something else talk more about maybe your structuring to-do lists, like maybe give people a step by step. So like kind of what's
Mhm.
in your journal or your planner.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I think that would really help people. So yeah, maybe
Yeah.
next week we can do another live and go from there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to do that, Alan. I love meeting with you. I love our conversations. And so, yeah, absolutely. Well, let's plan on it next week at the same time and same place if that's good for you.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, guys, we'll leave it there. Hope you got value, and we'll see you in the next video. Ciao.
Thanks.